Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the third iteration of the La Royale dev server, and it's time to go through the changes or additions that they've added to this dev server. There's quite a lot of small things, so bear with me and we'll get through them all. The first one is they've added the loading screen for the good old update. It's always nice to see these things. So the loading screen has access to the VBCI 2 that you can see back here, and then also the Freccia and the BTR ATA. So very much light tank orientated is probably the way to put it, but nice to see it. The next thing is for the F-14B. So the F-14B has a few changes. First of all, it gets itself its NVD modification, so this will be researched in order to get access to the pod, so you can use the paveways with it, which will be nice. They also haven't really changed the M54Cs yet, so they're basically just a copy of the A's, but just a little bit heavier at the moment. But the fact that you get that mod's pretty cool. And also, they've added a new camouflage for the F-14B as well. So you get this bicolor camouflage, which, if I'm honest with you, it kind of looks Soviet. Like when I think of like Su-35s or stuff like that, that's that type of camo. So kind of interesting to see that they've gone for that color scheme. So you've got like, you know, the gray and then kind of the green instead of just like the standard gray, which is around. But nice to see. The next vehicle that has been changed is the J8F. Now, the J8F, they actually talked about how they were going to remove its semi-active radar homing missiles, the PL-11s. And the reason for this is because, well, it never used them. Instead, I believe it used the PL-12s, but they're seen as too good for the game right now. So the idea is later on it'll get access to them. Instead, what they've done is they've made it so you can mount the PL-8s on all of the different hardpoints which exist. So you can run a 6 PL-8 loadouts, which are the IR missiles, which are insanely good, the Python 3s from Israel. Israel still doesn't get access to these yet, but it has been confirmed that some Israeli vehicles will get these in the future, so we'll have to see how it goes. These are all aspect, they have a very fast speed, a very long also burn time and overload with that speed. Everything works really well with these missiles. So close range, this thing's going to be deadly, especially since it has the head-mounted setup where you can guide the Seeker with your helmet. So yeah, J8F is looking really fun. They've also changed the Su-25 and also the Su-39. They also have changed the other Su-25s as well by giving them additional ordnance in the form of drop tanks, technically. So now you can bring 800 liters worth of fuel alongside of you, along your general loadouts, instead of just the, you know, additional things. So if you're coming around and, you know, you're going to have a long mission in the Su-25, that is something that'll pop up. The other parts of the Su-25T is they've added a camo for it as well, a G camo. So the desert camo, it can be ground out, so you need 750 players defeated, or you can just G it and get it for that, which is quite cool. They've also changed the BTR ATA, so this is another one that's gone through the ringer. It's now at 7.0, and the reason why this vehicle is at 7.0 is because they decided to add the APDS to it. So instead of having the pen it had before, which was the 65, 48, 25 on the APT, it now has access to 82, 80, and 33 millimeters through the APDS. So generally, this will be a lot more effective at being, you know, the anti-tank vehicle and therefore a more active, quick scout. But also that means it goes up in BR quite a lot. It also has changed from rank 4 to rank 5. So it will be harder to research compared to previously, and finds itself here in the tech tree instead of here, which is where it was before. They're also changing the good old object 435 as well. This vehicle got access to NVDs, so they added that to it, and also they gave it the artillery support, which it didn't have before for some reason, even though it was a medium tank. So now it gets both, and also gets the standard rounds for the 115 that we talked about before. So nothing, all of those additions are really nice for this vehicle, basically bringing it up to what it should be since it had the NVDs, and also since it's a medium, should get the artillery. Another gun that is being changed is for the Type 87 RCVP. This thing is now at 7.3 instead of, I think it was at 5.7, and that's because they've modified the Rheinmetall 202. So this 20mm now has a 2-plane stabilizer on it, meaning that it's going to be a lot more accurate, especially on the move. And they once again gave it a better round. The DM63, which is the APDS shell, pens 66, 60, and 25. So this thing's going to be super annoying to face. If you're in like a mobile medium tank or a light tank, it's just going to rat-a-tat you to death. So light tanks all over the place once again for these. Another thing to note for ground vehicles, and we'll hit a few birds with one stone here. One of the things that they've done is they've added in the new crew voices, but they've also added a ton of static with the crew voices, which I'm not really happy about.
Positions! Driver here, I'm ready. Gunner ready. Gunner ready.
So you can hear there's like a ton of static now with like the voice lines, and it basically mumbles everything and makes it, you know, so you can't really tell what's being said, which really sucks because it was kind of nice having them clean and crisp previously. Like even if you're in the crew, it's super rough, right? Now, one of the things that they have done as well is they've actually added a few new visual effects. So you may have seen that recently they've made radiators basically do damage to engines, or at least that's the idea. So now if you actually hit a radiator, it actually springs basically what would be classed as, I suppose, a leak, and then it evaporates. So there you go. That's what happens when a radiator gets damaged. This happens on all of the different vehicles, so not just those ones, which is quite cool. So yeah, overall I think that's quite nice. I just wish this crackle was not as harsh as generally you see, right? So once again, that's the transmission destroyed. You saw a little puff of smoke, so that's there as well. But the radiator hits, and there you go. So that is what it does. This gives you a little bit of a puff of smoke, just to be slightly different, giving you something new. And just to show you that this like muffle is even there for like very high tier vehicles, I'll just bring out the Black Knight, for example, and just show you or just listen to the audio. It really hurts.
Crew positions! Back it up! Driver ready! Gunner ready! Gunner ready!
So yeah, it kind of sucks, and you can see it here as well if you do something like this.
T64, 12 o'clock, range, 1200.
Like, I just wish they didn't go as hard on the crackle. Like that's all I'll say. Like, I wish it was just slightly less, okay? So anyway, back to what we're talking about. So for French Naval, they've changed a few things. They've actually added in a few vehicles like the Paris and the Lorraine. So those have turned up. 2 battleships are in the house, which is really cool. And then also there's swapped a few vehicles. So the Barrasque and also the Chacal, these are now swapped. So the Chacal used to be the reserve. Now they've decided to make this 4.0 and then made the Barrasque the reserve that you get access to, which is interesting since the premium starter destroyer for Blue Water for France is actually the Panther, which is a Chacal class and not a Barrasque class. So kind of interesting, but shouldn't really make too much of a difference. Each coastal tech tree as well now has access to new camouflages. So just how pretty much all of Blue Water got access to camouflages, now all of coastal has them too. and most of them are put down to some interesting patterns. I will say I definitely prefer some over others, I think is the way to put it, and some nations have more than others. So for example, you can see here that Germany actually has 4 of them, and you can grind some of them out, and then others you have to actually G. This is one of my favorites, by the way. I think this is really cool. But other nations don't have access to all 4. Instead, they only have 3. The other thing as well is this machine, the 12412P, the Strelas are still on the back, and you can still use them, but they you can't like lock onto anything, and you can't target anything with them still. So, by the way, these camos you can like fully move and also change condition of, so that's for all of them. And that's just how it goes. But yeah, the Strelas on this thing, they're operational, like you can select them, but they just don't work yet. Then for the British, you also have some camos as well on all of the coastal machines, and some of them you can grind out, like you can see here with the geometric one, you're able to grind that one out, but others, such as the spotted one, you're not able to. So that's how they're setting it up. The same as the blue water things, it's not really a surprise. The fact that naval for so long went out or didn't have additional camos to their machines is kind of nuts. I hope that they do try and kind of like post-do a lot of these things, meaning that if you already got that much damage, you would get the camos unlocked, but we'll have to see if they decide to do that in the future. The Italians get the worst unicolor camo. This is a horrific color, especially for a naval vehicle. It just looks like it's oxidized copper. But then you also have a few of the other ones, which do look really nice. So, and then just blue, which I don't know where this comes from, but I'm guessing it's a marketplace skin. So yeah, those exist too, which is pretty cool. The control look has been updated, and also new help buttons have been added. So if we go to something like the EVGA, I can kind of show you the new help screens, which are really nice. And I'll just let the crew talk so I can get it out of my head. There we go. Oh, no, they're still going. Oh, still going. But yeah, so with this, they've actually completely updated how the help look works for new players. So you can see the controls for aircraft. It talks about, you know, what you need to do and where you need to do it. Same for controls for tank, naval, and also helicopter, and UCAV, which is really cool. But one of the other things is they actually show you all of the key bindings that you have specifically bound to the mouse and keyboard, so where everything is. So if I hover over here, you can see this is what I have for select radar RST target to lock, and then lock radar RST on target, fire rockets, and all of this. So you can actually just hover over buttons and see which one you use compared to other ones, right? Which I think is pretty nice overall. So you can work out which keys you use and don't use, or work out, you know, where you actually use stuff, and also what you need to redo. So that's pretty cool, alongside all of the help stuff that they've updated over the time. So like a lot of this might not be exactly fully new, but the idea is they're updating this for new players to make it easier to deal with, right? And you can get access to it here if you want to as well. So the other part is the protection analysis. So the protection analysis, the changes that they're bringing into this thing are not really well documented. So it's kind of hard to work out what is new and what is old, just because of how this setups. But they've added in a main menu button explosion test, so that's in. And then what you can do is you can actually do stuff like land shots in different areas to be able to kind of see how it affects the vehicle. So if you don't actually hit the vehicle, but you hit like the shell here, will it actually kill the vehicle from the side, right? And this has kind of been in, but then you have like the offset thing, so you know you can set that up as well, see what like goes on with that. So it like with the offset thing, this tells you if it goes through like 3,000 millimeters of stuff, does it still penetrate the vehicle? Same with the other one. And then of course you have like the protection map still, and also the distance and all of that. So they're definitely adding new stuff to this, which is pretty cool. It's just trying to work out what is new and what is not, because these changes aren't documented, which kind of sucks. So it might be worth playing around with it, seeing what's going on with it. The other thing they've also done, which I don't really see a lot of, is they have supposedly changed some different visuals of things, but we'll have a look at that in a sec. They did change the radar of the Mirage 5F, so this vehicle actually has access now to the Tails RDY, but it has all of these different modes on it, where before it didn't get access to a ton of that stuff. So you can kind of see the difference between the old one and the new one. This one has a lot more functionality, it has a lot more use, which is quite good for the vehicle. The search PDN HDN, TWS ADN search, and all of that. So, and then it has some more usability to it. Now, the visual effects, we've obviously already looked at the radiator thing. They've supposedly changed a few other things as well, and one of those is the way that missiles go. So missiles supposedly look different than they did before. I find it very hard to tell the difference, and also when a missile hits a target, it's also supposed to be different as well. But as I said previously, my eyes aren't good enough to see the difference between these things, so maybe some of you guys would be able to tell. But at least for me, that is not, the case. So pretty much as simple as that. They're supposed to look different. They're supposed to fly different. It kind of just is how it is. Then you have the countermeasures. They've slightly changed the flares and what they look like too. But once again, it's not exactly easy for me to see and understand. I'm sure somebody can tell the intricacies and the differences of these between the other ones, but they look kind of the same to me, unless we're talking about the smoke themselves, where they look slightly different. So maybe that's the difference in that setup. They've added a new bomb to specific machines. The one we're going to look at specifically is the F4J, but it is on the F4S and probably some others in the future, and it is a big old napalm bomb. So this is a 1,000-pound Mark 79 Mod 1 incendiary bomb. You can find it here. It has a 322 kilos of napalm B in it, which is kind of nuts. And yeah, it's probably the biggest napalm bomb we have in the game. It doesn't really do much though. Like it's not something that is hugely different, because it's still napalm, right? So it's still got very limited use in the game. One of the cool things about it though is it does actually have a pretty decent spread on it. So when you like drop it somewhere, so for example here, if you have a look at the spread that it does, it actually does cover quite a decent length of the ground, and also at the same time does do or will do damage to lighter stuff and also to bases. So you can, I suppose, corner off areas if you want to. I just don't think it'll make that much of a difference. But with like vehicles and stuff like that, you could drop like this is against the gas obviously, but you can drop like the bomb in that you can see, and then it will spread and then maybe like hurt the thing if you can like line it up properly, unlike me, but you get the idea. You can cover larger areas with it, so if you're trying to like bomb bases or whatever with these, you can make it a little bit easier, and against lighter targets like the gas, it will be able to destroy, especially with the CCIP. Another change, you can see that, target destroyed. So another change is the CCRP display now has been added for guided bombs. So if a vehicle already had CCIP, now it works with the guided bombs when it didn't before, and that's pretty nice too. That's all of the major changes of this update server, the good old dev server. You can see there's a ton of stuff going on with this, and I feel like this is probably going to be the last dev server before the release, which will probably come next week. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Cupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.